Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre of Majestic Wire Artworks. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this pretty little bead necklace. And I'm calling it Pretty Little Bead because I got these pretty little beads from Beebeecraft. So I'm making this video with them and how to use these wonderful little beads. And the supply list that you need, of course, is you're going to need one of the beads from Beebeecraft, and for this video I'm picking our red one. I think it'll show up nice. It's very pretty. So with these beads, they're called lampwork beads, but if you look inside, it's got little florets and some shiny little pieces of copper. And that is the lampwork part. And then the outer part is actually acrylic that's been faceted that shows off the lampwork. And these are 10 millimeters wide, or I don't know, the circumference or diameter, I should say, is 10 millimeters. And then they measure approximately 6 millimeters wide. So they're actually quite delicate and dainty. And then we're going to be showing that off with some weaving as well as some accenting bicones, and then adding chain. And so your supply list is you're going to need one of your Beebeecraft beads. You're going to need 2 5-inch pieces of 20 gauge soft wire. You're going to need 4 feet or 3.5. 4 feet was a little bit long, so 3.5 would work, of 28 gauge for your weaving wire. And you're going to need 1 4-inch 20 gauge wire. That's going to be the centerpiece that holds the bead and the weaving. And of course your special, well, I already said your special bead. And then 2 accenting bicones. So let's begin. So the first thing I want you to do is to grab your 2 5-inch pieces of 20 gauge wire. I'm going to set the bead down. And, oh, where'd they go on me? I'm just going to do a brief example of it online here. I've already got my weaving done ahead of time. And I'm going to take my weaving wire and one of my 20 gauge wires, and I'm just looping around like that, pushing it together. And this is what I call lassoing it in. Now I'm going to give you just a brief overview in this video for those that know how to do this, and those that want to have more precise information on how I keep it neat and so forth. I'm going to put a link on to an unlisted video I have made regarding this weave. It's actually one of my videos available for my Patreon clients, so consider yourself privileged to be able to use this. And so now I've got these 2 wires lassoed together, as I call it, and I'm taking the wire now and I'm going under both, my weaving wire under both wires and up and around, and I pull it tight so it does the bend. And now I'm going down between the 2 wires and coming back up. Okay, so now I've got one little wrap and another little wrap, and now I'm coming up around the back, behind the top wire, and I'm crossing over both on top. Hopefully you can see that. And now I'm bending again and coming up between the 2 wires, and I'm going underneath both, and like that, over both, coming up in the middle, going back under both, now going down in the middle, and you just continue this, and it makes the 3/4 weave, as I call it. There. Okay. And then after you've done about 5 of the patterns, you cinch it up together. And my nails can't handle really doing it, so just recommending for everybody that doesn't want to use their nails, you can do it with a plier like this too. Okay, and that's just the basic of how you want to do your weaving. So what I want you to do is do 2 inches of weaving. Now that's going to be too much, but in case you have a bigger bead that you're working with in the middle, I'm giving a little bit of extra leeway to do it a little bit longer, and it'll give you some wiggle room. And it's always good to have more than too little of weaving anyways. Okay, so I have my 2 inches of weaving complete, and you're going to pick which side. You might have one side that looks neater than the other, and whichever side looks neater, you make it your front. And I think this side is my neater, so I'm going to set that down with that on top. And now I'm going to start making the wire that's going to hold the bead. Okay, so you need to take your round nose pliers, and you need to take the end of the wire, crimp it or snip it so it's flat with your flush cutter, and you need to make a it doesn't need to be a fairly big loop, but I think a fairly big loop looks nice. But you want to make sure that it's at a point on your pliers that you can remember. So I'm picking the middle, and it makes it really good to keep consistency. Okay, so I've made the loop, and now I'm going to bend it. Right now it's a P loop, see, because it's making a P. I want it to be an I, and I'm just going to bend this back until it looks neat. And an I, that's still a little bit off, so I'm going to just straighten it out. Okay, there. And now you need to straighten out the wire as best you can. And I'm also work hard. I'm doing this on purpose with my chain nose pliers. I'm squishing down, straightening it out. This is also work hardening it, so it'll be sturdier holding the bead. Now I have many times had people comment, why aren't you using the nylon pliers for straightening? Well, personally, in this situation, and when I do this, I recommend not using the nylon pliers, because it's going to be under the bead. If it mars your wire, it's not going to matter. And by snapping, I don't know if you can hear that, it's actually snapping the wire. I'm work hardening it, and then it holds its shape better. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is put on a bicone. It's not crucial to do this because we're going to figure out the shape of the weaving yet, because this bead will probably come off a couple times during our process. Okay, so there we go. And now what we're going to do is take our weaving wire, and we want to find the approximate center point and do a bend. And the shape of your bend will determine what your necklace will look like. You could do it so it's wider at the bottom, or approximately the same shape of the bead. In order to do the same shape of the bead, all you'd really need to do is take the bead and wrap around it, and that would give you a shape. But in order to start that off, I'm just going to try and bend it in a center point like this. And see, I don't have the exact center, and it doesn't matter. Okay, and okay, so that's approximately the shape of the bead, and I see that I've bent it a little bit here, that it's not quite the shape I want it to be. I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers and straighten that up, and now bend it up. I've got it so that it's the wires are going quite levelly up and down. And then you need to decide if you want any airspace in there. So I like airspace because it gives a statement. See, you could do it so that the bead is right there. Ah, it's moving on me. Right there. But I want it, personally, I want it up a little bit more. I like having that space in there. It just does something for the necklace. It just, I don't know, gives some elegance, I guess. And so now what I want to do, since I have the shape I want, it might take you longer to figure out your shape. If you have it kinked up, what you can do is, like I did, is just straighten it with these pliers gently on the edges, not up and down. If it starts bending on you, that it's not level, because we want it to sit level, that's when you take it and level it out. But you're doing it very gently, and you're just getting the direction of the wire. Okay, so now I'm putting my bead back on the wire, and I'm wanting to look at how much space I want underneath. I don't think really long looks good, but if you had a rounder, a little bit wider bead, it might. You could, you know, just eyeball it what you think would look good. And I think about right there would look good. And now I'm going to make sure that it's sitting level. And then I'm taking that wire and using it as a pressure point to bend. And it didn't quite work the way I wanted. So I'm going to have to take, oops, sorry. I wonder, hopefully, I'll do this again, so make sure that it's off, was on camera. Okay, I've held the wire on here, and then I bent the woven wire, used the wire to bend the woven wire, and hopefully that it would make them level. And because I did it a second time, it actually helped quite a bit. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I really need to make sure that those bends are at the same height, and I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to make a more substantial bend. We want it to be the same height, and at this point, if one is higher than the other, you would actually want to pick the lower one. It's easier to lower one than it is to heighten one. Okay, but I think I've got mine pretty good there. And now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to make a loop out of the weaving, because we're going to basically turn this into a bead. Okay, so I've got it like that. And then we're going to snip it off, because then we're going to bend it in towards the front wire weaving, and we're going to close it off. So about there, enough that we can make a loop. Okay, now on another design, I had a lady ask me a question. Well, isn't the weaving wire going to unravel? It might a little bit, but the fact that we are tucking it in against itself is going to make it so it's got no place to go, and it's okay. Okay, so it's locked in against itself. If a little bit does come loose, you can snip it off. It's like no worries. And so this is what it looks like from the front. Okay, and if once we got it all together, and we find one is a little bit higher than the other, then we can make adjustments. I think it's okay. Sometimes it's easier to make the adjustment in the bend down here, so that's one option. And then we want to make sure it's the same width of the bead. So I got to take this bead off of this wire, and I need to then put it through one of these loops, I guess, on the weaving wire. Sorry, I didn't have an appropriate name. And then put the wire through the other loop. Okay, so now we have it like that. And you want to make sure that it is hugging the bead on both sides, because it won't look nice if you don't. And then you're going to put on your other bicone. Okay, and we want the loops on each side to be exactly the same direction, because it'll make your necklace look funny if you don't. Okay, so the next step to do, because we want it fairly tight, is we're going to hold this and support it all to keep that wire beads tight against this loop, and that wire not to be bent by what we're doing next. And I am pushing using that bead, and see how it bent? The bead bent when I did it, so I got to bend that bead back down. So this is a bit tricky. There, I held that bead and it's still bent. So we just keep working at it till we get it right. And now I want to make a loop the same size as the other one, and which was the halfway point on my pliers. And I'm going around and make that loop. Okay, so there it is. And now I'm going to snip it with my flush cutters right so it matches. Whoops, I had my pliers snips the wrong way. Gotta think about these things. Okay. And now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just close it up, make it straight, and that's when we do our check to make sure everything lines up right. And it's lining up quite nicely on mine. Doesn't mean it will on yours, so make any adjustments you need at this point with your weaving or your wire. And at this point, we're ready to put the chain on. So what you need to do is figure out how much chain you want, how long you want this necklace to be, and you would subtract the width of your pendant and the size of your clasp in total. You subtract that from whatever length you want your necklace, and you cut a piece of chain that adds up to the length you want from that point, and cut that in half. And then you take half of your wire, half of your chain, and put it on each end. And when you're bending these loops, because you want to keep them nice and neat, you bend it up like that. You don't pull it out, you'll wreck your circle. You want to keep that circle nice looking. You put on your chain, whoops, and then you bend it back down, and you kept it nice and neat. And then do the same for the other side. Now it's ready to put on your clasp. And depending on what type of clasp you're putting on, that's up to you. It's your clasp of choice, and depending on what style it is will depend on the techniques used. So I'm not going to show you how to put on a clasp, because it depends what you pick. Okay, so there it is. It's done. It's beautiful. And I thank you for joining me in this video. Thank you, Beebeecraft, for the wonderful little beads. They're gorgeous. And I hope you find, well, anyways, I hope that it gets lots of sales in this new year. And with COVID going on, maybe we have more time to do crafts. So God bless to all of you, and take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.